Hey everyone, welcome back to Tan's Top 10 channel. I hope you all have been enjoying this little series I've been doing in the month of October, counting down my favorite movie villains of each decade. If you haven't yet, please go check out the top 10 80s villains and the top 20 1990s villains. That was a pretty hard list to make, but I'm pretty proud of it. And today's video is going to be counting down my top 10 movie villains of the 2000s, along with some honorable mentions as always. So let's get right into the list. Kicking off the honorable mentions, we got a couple tragic movie villains. We got Mr. Glass from Unbreakable, fantastic performance by Samuel L. Jackson, and a twist at the end when he's actually revealed to be the villain. So you go through the entire movie not actually knowing that he's the true villain of the movie. Then we got Magneto from X-Men, fantastic performance by Ian McKellen, and another tragic character with his past being in the Holocaust and what happens to his mother. And then he kind of is actually more like you could say he's more like an anti-hero, but at least in the first X-Men movie, he is the true villain. My next honorable mention is going to be Le Chiffre from Casino Royale, one of the more misunderstood James Bond villains. He's not trying to take over the world. All he is he owes people money, and he's trying to win that money back in this poker game against James Bond. And when things don't go his way, then he becomes even more menacing, especially that torture scene. If you're a guy, that is a painful scene to watch. My next honorable mention, I actually got two of them from this movie. So I got Bill from Kill Bill, but then I kind of like Elle Driver more as a villain. First of all, I think Daryl Hannah, I think she does a great job, and her like attitude towards the bride and how much she despises her. It's just kind of entertaining to watch, especially how often she gets like just bad shit happens to her. Like she gets her eye plucked out by Pai Mei, I think his name is. And then the fight with her and the bride in the trailer house, that's like one of my favorite Quentin Tarantino scenes ever. Love it. My next honorable mention is easily the best Mission Impossible villain, and that is Owen Davian from Mission Impossible 3. First of all, you got Philip Seymour Hoffman playing him, one of the best actors to ever be on the screen. We lost him way too early. He was such an incredible villain in this movie. Super menacing. He's not like a physically built guy, but psychologically he just fucks with you. So I loved him in that movie. So menacing. My next honorable mention is possibly the funniest Disney villain of all time, and that is Yzma from The Emperor's New Groove. If you want to throw Kronk in there as well, you could. I don't really view Kronk as a villain. He's too likable, you know. He's such a sweetheart. He doesn't mean to be bad. Yzma, on the other hand, she has so much fun being a villain, so the voice work as well is fantastic. I love her in that movie. In my last honorable mention, a lot of people are going to be shocked that this guy is not in my top 10. He'd probably be in a lot of people's top 10s, and that is Voldemort from the Harry Potter franchise. I'm not the biggest Harry Potter fan, so maybe that's why he's not in my top 10, but you get like a lot of build up in the first three movies of who Voldemort is as a character. And then in Goblet of Fire, actually the one that I've seen the most, probably my favorite of the Harry Potter movies. Might be a hot take, I don't know. When you finally get introduced to Voldemort at the end, you're like, oh shit, this guy is super scary and he means business. Like as soon as Robert Pattinson's character gets killed, you're like, this entire franchise gets a lot darker. So I kind of wish we got more of him in the later movies. You do get that big conclusion at the end there in Deathly Hallows Part 2 with him and Harry. But he is super menacing. I just wish we got a little bit more of him, and I wish I was a bigger Harry Potter fan. Kicking off the list at number 10 is going to be Alonzo Harris from Training Day. Probably Denzel Washington's most iconic performance. He won the Oscar for this movie. He's so goddamn good in this. Denzel plays a corrupt police officer who is training this new rookie detective, kind of taking him through the streets and making him do shady shit like take PCP and like kind of sets him up to get pretty much murdered in a way. So totally despicable character, but you got Denzel playing him, so you kind of like him in a way. And he's got such great lines like King Kong ain't got shit on me. It's very, very difficult to hate Denzel Washington, and he is so goddamn charismatic in this movie. I haven't seen that movie in a while. Definitely due for a rewatch very soon. Coming in at number 9, we actually got quite a few villains that we could choose from, and that is from the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So obviously you could do Sauron, Saruman, Gollum, or even Denethor from Return of the King, because that guy is the biggest piece of shit dad probably in movie history. Like, fuck that guy. He's such a dick. But he does have one of the best deaths ever. Like, fantastic death. Probably my favorite villain of this trilogy is Gollum. In a way, you kind of sympathize with him in a way because all he wants is his precious. Like, if he has his precious, he'll fuck off. You know, he's not going to hurt you or anything. As soon as you take his precious, he'll fucking bite your finger right off. He doesn't care. He's also very disgusting looking, like especially at the beginning of Return of the King, where it shows his transformation, pretty much from like being a hobbit into pretty much from being Smeagol to Gollum. You're like, oh, this guy fucking makes me want to barf. But an iconic performance by Andy Serkis. He's just such a fun character too, especially with his dual personality. He's so much fun to watch and definitely elevates this trilogy to be even better than it would have been. Coming in at number 8 is going to be the Green Goblin from Spider-Man 2002. A lot of people would probably have Doc Ock on their list from Spider-Man 2, but I just like how menacing and evil and kind of just fun Green Goblin is in Spider-Man, especially played by Willem Dafoe, like one of my favorite actors. Plus, he's from Wisconsin, so I have to root for him. This guy just has so much, like Willem Dafoe brings so much personality to this movie. He is having a total blast being such a piece of shit. A lot of people talk shit about the costume. It looks a little Power Rangery. I could see it if you're watching it nowadays, but like I grew up watching these movies, and so I just always loved the costume. And then at the end fight with him and Spider-Man, like brutal fight, like one of the most brutal superhero fights like in any comic book movie. Spider-Man gets ass kicked in that movie, but then get the fucking great death scene with Green Goblin where he fucking gets the glider. Pretty much, it like impales his genitals. It's like not high enough to be in his chest or stomach. It's like right in his genitals. So maybe that's why he's on this list. Even maybe he should be even higher. That's a great death. Anyways, Green Goblin, fucking incredible performance. One of my favorite comic book movie villains of all time. Coming in at number 7 is going to be Hans Landa from Inglourious Bastards, one of Quentin Tarantino's best villains of all time. Maybe his best. This is Christoph Waltz just announcing himself to American film goers. Like, no one knew who this guy was. And within that opening scene of him having that conversation with that farmer, you're like, at the beginning of the conversation, you know, he seems nice. He's a Nazi, so you know he's not nice, but you're like, okay, like this guy's being, you know, he's being very polite, being very professional. And then at some point in the conversation towards like the middle of it, as soon as he's like, you're hiding enemies of the state, are you not? You're like, oh fuck. Like this guy is menacing and he like fucks with people psychologically. And then throughout the movie, you're like, this guy just like, you never know what he's thinking. Like you never know as soon, like when he's gonna fucking turn in a conversation. And then at the end, when he just turns out to be like fucking little weasel and he's trying to turn in, pretty much like turn over and wants to move to America and like thinks he's gonna get away with everything. And in a way, he kind of does because he does probably end up going to America, but he gets that swastika carved on his forehead. That is so goddamn satisfying. I mean, it probably would have been better to just see him get murdered, but in a way, just getting that carved in his forehead, you're like, oh, fuck, that's. Ugh. He deserves it. He deserves so much worse. But Christoph Waltz plays such a great villain in that movie. Coming in at number 6, we got Commodus from Gladiator. One of Joaquin Phoenix's like more underrated performances. Like it might be one of his most popular, but like he doesn't get the credit for how great of a performance this is. This is a character that is so despicable. First off, he like in the beginning of the movie, after like the big battle at the start, he comes in, he's like thinks he gets all the glory and whatever. He's like, oh, I missed the battle, did I? You're like, God damn, this like I hate this guy already. And then as soon as he kills his dad, played by Richard Harris, like why would you kill Richard Harris? What a sweetheart that guy is. But so then by then you're just like, fuck this guy. And then what he does to Maximus and Maximus's family, you're just like, this is one of the most ultimate revenge tales, and you are just waiting for Commodus to get his fucking comeuppance at the end. And when he gets that dagger in the fucking throat at the end, you're like, hell yes. So, like I said, one of the more despicable movie villains, and the way like he torments his sister and his nephew in the movie as well, you're just like, fuck, this guy is so slimy. And like I said, he gets it at the end, and it's so goddamn satisfying. Speaking of despicable, slimy villains, in at number 5 is Colonel Tavington from The Patriot. One of the most underrated villains of all time. Like, I never hear anyone talk about this guy. First of all, he's played by Jason Isaacs. So right there, you're like, this guy is such a piece of shit. I mean, Jason Isaacs is a fantastic actor. Nothing against him. He's fantastic in this movie. But he plays a British officer in the Revolutionary War. And just like the shit he does throughout this movie, you're like, fuck, can this guy get any more unlikable? First of all, he kills Thomas, spoilers, he kills Thomas at the beginning of the movie, who is one of Mel Gibson's sons in the movie. So he kills him, and he's just like, stupid boy. Like, oh, fuck, like, that's brutal. And then in the middle of the movie, when he locks up all the people in the church in that little town, and he's like, burn the church, Captain, you're like, oh, please don't do this. And it fucking happens, and you're just like, God damn it, this guy sucks. And then, possibly the worst thing he does is kill Heath Ledger's character. Fucking Gabriel, like everyone's favorite character in this movie, and he fucking surprise kills him. Oh, I hate it. I hate it. I hate Tavington, but he fucking gets it at the end with that bayonet in the gut, and then he gets it another one just right in the throat. Two good villain deaths with getting stabbed in the throat. But Tavington, easily one of the most underrated villains of all time. If you haven't seen The Patriot, actually go check it out. It's a pretty long movie, but it's awesome. It's got some really great battle scenes, and Tavington is just one of the best villains. So menacing, so despicable, but Jason Isaacs knocks it out of the park. Coming in at number 4 is Bill the Butcher from Gangs of New York. One of Martin Scorsese's best characters of all time. Daniel Day-Lewis is so fantastic in this movie. It's kind of crazy he didn't win an Oscar for this. Like, he is so goddamn good in this movie. At the beginning of the movie, you got that big battle sequence when he's going up against Liam Neeson, who plays Leonardo DiCaprio's dad, and he kills him at the beginning of the movie, and pretty much the rest of the film is Leonardo DiCaprio kind of infiltrating Bill the Butcher's gang, getting close to him, and trying to kill him, pretty much getting his revenge for his dad's death. And you cannot help but kind of love Bill the Butcher. Like, this is such a gross looking villain. Like, his hair is always so greasy and slick backed, but he's so goddamn like commanding, and he just brings a presence to this film where you're just like, anytime he's on screen, you're like, I have no idea what's going to happen. Like, he could fucking let go at any moment. He could kill any character. He's so unpredictable. Like, he fucking kills Brendan Gleeson's character just out of nowhere. Like, they're about to have a meeting. He just throws that goddamn axe in his back, and you're like, God damn it, this guy's fucking evil as hell. And you got one of the best mustaches in cinematic history. Holy shit, Daniel Day-Lewis has fantastic facial hair. But just a great villain. Like I said, one of Martin Scorsese's best characters. He's a character that you love to hate. Coming in at number 3 is the epitome of a true psychopath, and that is Anton Chigurh from No Country for Old Men. Javier Bardem won an Oscar for this performance, and there's no question as to why. He is so good in this movie. He's actually a really interesting villain. Like, this guy loves to kill people. Even if you have nothing to do with him, if you're just an innocent person just going about their day, like, if he talks to you and makes you do this coin toss, he'll kill you if you fail that coin toss. Like, you'll get a silent shotgun to the fucking arm or to the chest, or you'll get, like, the blowgun to the forehead. Like, this guy loves killing people. But he also, like, hates getting blood on himself. Like, in the scene where he kills Woody Harrelson's character, and the blood starts flowing towards him, and he kicks his feet up on that side table. Like, you're just like, dude, like, for a guy who, like, absolutely adores death, pretty much, like, he hates getting blood on himself. So pretty interesting character. And then just the way he maneuvers around and like the entire look of him, like with that dumb haircut and the way he talks, it's such an entertaining character. But you're also like can't take your eyes off him. He's so scary in this movie. Probably one of the scariest movie villains that's not actually in a horror movie. Definitely. Coming in at number 2 is going to be Vincent from Collateral. Now, he actually might not have been at the number 2 slot, but I recently rewatched Collateral and I was blown away by Tom Cruise's performance in this movie. It's a role that we've never seen from him before or since. Like, this is the only villainous turn that Tom Cruise, I'm pretty sure, has ever taken, and he is so good in this movie. Holy shit. He's got like that slick silver fox hair and he's got that silver suit as well. He plays a professional hitman. He's got all these hits throughout the night that he's got to do. He's so professional. He's got everything detailed out pretty much to the like every minute detail. But he's also like, got great lines where he's like got to improvise and yo homie, is that my briefcase? Like you don't got the trunk space. I love all these lines that he has. He is fucking funny and entertaining. He's also really charming. But when he has to be, he can be the most evil, menacing son of a bitch alive. And like if he wants you dead, he will fucking kill you. Like he will find a way. Even if you're in a nightclub surrounded by all your goons, he will fucking end you. And it is incredible. It's such a great performance by Tom Cruise. If you haven't seen Collateral, check it out. It's one of the best movies, one of my favorite movies of all time. But coming in at number 1, of course, is going to be Heath Ledger's The Joker from The Dark Knight. I mean, I don't really know what I can add that anyone else has said to this performance. He is so fucking good in this movie. It actually might be my favorite, not even villain performance, like my favorite performance of all time. He is so entertaining in this movie. Pretty much is the gold standard to what comic book movie villains are held up to. Like, everyone will be like, oh yeah, that villain was good, but, Heath Ledger's Joker was better. And even like Joaquin Phoenix's performance in the movie Joker, everyone's like, yeah, he was good. Like he won the Oscar for that. But he wasn't as good as Heath Ledger's Joker. And I agree. Like Heath Ledger, just the way he took a character that we've seen a couple times before, the animated series, Jack Nicholson's turn, Cesar Romero's performance as well. And he just takes that character and he doesn't he's still the Joker, but it is a Joker unlike anything we've ever seen before, like the animated series, all those other performances. He takes that, builds on them, and totally makes the Joker his own. And he's funny, he's menacing, you like him a lot, but he's also super scary, especially like that homemade video where he's like, look at me! And you're just like, fuck, this guy's so scary, but he's so entertaining, and he is the reason why The Dark Knight is as revered as probably the best comic book movie of all time. It is because of Heath Ledger's The Joker. It is my personal favorite performance of all time, I think, and it is my favorite movie villain, not just of the 2000s, but of any decade. He is my favorite movie villain of all time. So obviously he has to be number 1 on this list. Well, everyone, that's it for this video. Please share down below what your thoughts would be. Some of your favorite movie villains from the 2000s. If I missed any, I'm sure I did. But these are just my personal picks. Share yours down below. Also look forward to the conclusion of this little series. It's going to be the top 10 movie villains of the 2010s. And if you haven't, please go check out the other 2 videos that I did before this with the 80s and the 90s. Those were a lot of fun. Please check those out. Also, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you have not. And until we see you for the conclusion of this little series, we'll see you guys next time.